Mark's got ahead of himself and he's come up to, he's already ready to go. So Mark Williams is the Managing Director of GWM Water and a good friend and colleague of ours that was formerly Grampians Water, and he was the Chief Financial Officer and then was appointed to Managing Director in 2011. He's responsible for the overseeing of the commercial implementation of the water reforms in the region, which are pretty significant if you know the sector, and investments that have improved water security and the introduction of an independent service and price regulation by the ESC, which there's one person in the room who that will mean a lot to. She's about to take up a role there. Mark brings a wealth of experience to his role beyond just the water industry, and has also had quite a significant impact in the health sector with the Wimmera Healthcare Group. Mark, lovely to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. I raced down because you said you wanted to get away early today, so I thought I'd just keep you ahead and keep you to that promise. But and with that, I also would like to acknowledge the traditional owners, custodians of the lands we gather, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So with that, and thanks for the introduction and thanks for the invite, Stuart. It's, we'd like to think we're doing some exciting things out at GWM Water, and with that, just a little bit about GWM Water. We're a vertically integrated water business in northwest Victoria, service area of approximately 62,000 hectares. We perform a number of functions. We are relatively unique in the water sector as a vertically integrated water business, and also doing those functions of water licensing and storage manager. A large network of water storages in the Grampians. Many of them were built to command a channel system which no longer operates, but are still sitting there, and we see those as assets that might even play a potential role in energy as well. We provide water and wastewater services, but probably what makes us a little bit unique is the rural stock and domestic network we have, and I'll talk about that a bit later on, but that differentiates us to probably the rest of the state. So we've got a touch point virtually with all of our customer base, in all of that part of northwestern Victoria, not just the urban towns, but the rural area. Energy is required to operate water and wastewater pump stations, water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants. So a large energy consumer, and we have invested substantially in renewable energy since 2018 to reduce our carbon footprint. So just in terms of energy use, so we've got urban water pump stations, water treatment plants, bores, rural pump stations, treatment plants, rural bores, wastewater treatment plants, wastewater pump stations and pressure sewers. So our footprint's significance in terms of energy, and with that we have in 2019-20 we consumed 584 megawatt hours of energy. We reduced that somewhat in 2021, 475. So strongly driven by the amount of demand. So the amount of demand on the system will influence energy particularly. And just on that rural pipeline network, we just got over 15,000 kilometres of rural pipeline network as well. So to put that into context, water industry is the biggest producer of carbon emissions in the Victorian public sector. As of 2019, it was 25%. It would have come down somewhat by then. I don't know that anyone's done a reliable measure since, but the whole sector's undertaking initiatives in their own way. But I think the issue for us is that in the context of our obligations to become carbon neutral, we don't see it as being an obligation, we see it as an opportunity. And with that, we have a large network of assets which are sitting around, which are still sitting there. They're legacy assets from the rural channel network, a large number of rural storages that are sitting there, which we see as being potential places where you can place solar panels, and we can realise them into renewable energy opportunities. So in terms of our strategic directions, we have a strategic aspiration of becoming a net generator of renewable energy, and with that, it's just really unlocking some of those opportunities we have. We've got a clean energy strategy, and that's identified a range of opportunities of behind and in front of the major opportunities. And as far as behind the meter, we've already installed 1.53 megawatts of power of renewable energy at 51 sites. And at this point in time, we're already at 25% reduction in our carbon emissions. And the economics is such now that we're actually starting to invest in battery technology as well. So when we started off, battery technology was still a bit beyond our means, but the economics is now swinging back to where we're really actually starting to put battery energy in situ as well. But we have been looking at ways that we can get in front of the meter. So behind the meter has been very much low-hanging fruit for us, but as far as moving forward, it's the front of meter opportunities that we're really looking at being able to harness. So just going into our clean energy strategy, one of the things that we are as a business, we're also regulated. So and with that, we need to make sure that we've got defendable investment decisions. So when we developed the clean energy strategy, we had a preliminary business case. And the baseline against that was against a green energy contract. And with that, we looked at the sort of reasons why we would be investing. One of those was to reduce our carbon footprint. One of the other issues we have in our region is around reliability and also then the high cost of energy generally in our region, so to the extent we can extend that value into our customers, which is the middle box. So that's using the Victorian Government Investment Management Standard. Also at that time, this is what we call the Fishbone Diagram. When we started off on this journey, it's really, once we get to becoming a net generator of renewable energy, how do we realise that in this ever-evolving market? So we basically developed a strategy which looked at sort of ultimately possibly being a retailer, but with that, as you might have seen in recent weeks with the energy crisis as it's unfolded, if you haven't got full generation cover, if you want to take out a retail energy licence, you're really quite exposed, and you will have heard of a number of energy retailers at the moment that are just saying, can you please get away from us? So if you haven't got cover in generation, you really want to have very good risk management in place. So it's a really dynamic and changing market, but of all the things you need to do, you need to, before you get to that point of becoming a retailer, you need to make sure you've got a substantial block of generation behind you. So in terms of behind the meter, we're still installing it as part of package 3, and when we get to that point we will spend $3.6 million, and with that we'll have achieved 33% reduction, and as I mentioned before, we're presently installing battery at Harrow. So in terms of front of the meter opportunities, this is one we've been had targeted quite a while ago, and have been working closely with C4net, and the benefit of the C4net project is that they actually had PowerCore in their portfolio of advisors. So with that, in Donald, we had the opportunity with a number of old urban storages, and with that, an opportunity there to put solar panels across those. Not far from the old urban storages, there's an industrial estate which has had some challenges with energy supply generally, and with that, developed a concept that we could have a microgrid servicing that industrial estate, and with that, we've been working with PowerCore through an organisation called ANEA as well to look at how that could progress. So the concept that we've worked up, and this is the work of ANEA working with PowerCore, they've identified potentially 1.5 to 2.5 megawatts in capacity, an area that's not only the industrial estate but part of the town, picking up some of the residential area and commercial area. And with that, and that's all being developed with the potential that we could put forward a bid to ARENA for ramp funding. So we're, with that, an overall project that will substantially tease out some of the opportunities we have in relation to microgrids / community energy scheme. So in terms of Donald model, it's the configuration involved is really just looking at, it's a fairly simple model, a diesel gen set as well, so we've actually got a diesel generator in situ there at the moment by virtue of the lack of reliability of power supply, the solar panels across there and installation of a battery. So that's a relatively straightforward process. We've got some water pumps, it'll service some residential customers and also service the industrial customers. So we're quite advanced with that, project. Through ANEA and PowerCore, we're actually looking to have a final public-facing report available soon, which will produce the outcome of their techno-economic study. The indications are it is positive. We've already had something which indicates it's positive. And they are going back with PowerCore and they're suggesting it might even be a bit more positive on reflection. And with that, once that's available, we'll be working through that with our board and seeing how we might advance that particular project. In the context of where we are, further opportunities exist in the context of the circular economy. So I can't remember who mentioned it before, but someone mentioned about the Ballarat project, which is looking at circular economy. We've got similar opportunities in our region to do that. And I think the other aspect of that is the regulatory framework evolving to better recognise the challenges of embedded generation. And certainly Richika mentioned that before, that some of the real constraints that you have really exist around the regulatory framework itself, and the recent change that Dharmika alluded to before is one of those that gives a bit more flexibility of an opportunity to get in front of the meter. So in the fullness of time, GWM Water could conceptually be an aggregator in many of the small towns and be the net exporter at a town meter. That's one of the concepts we've been working with. And with that, so the Donald example is a reasonably mid-sized town, but we've got storages about the same size sitting on the edge of towns like Brim, Beulah, where you could effectively install solar panels, batteries, and facilitate, if they're not already there, because there's a fairly passive community, if they haven't already taken up roof-based solar, that we could effectively enable that process as well. And with that, the other aspect that's really quite interesting emerging is that sort of parallel process of emerging green hydrogen. So inside that industrial estate in Donald, there's a food producer who's just recently shifted across to gas ovens. And whilst it's not part of that project now, it is something conceptually you could say, well, with water going into the site, they've got bottled gas going into that site. If some of the challenges, and so it might be the opportunity to start looking at perhaps a hydrogen oven as opposed to a gas oven. So certainly some real opportunities in our region to take advantage of the natural resource we have. So in summary, we've got an obligation to be carbon neutral by 2035. And as I said, we don't see it as an obligation, we see it as an opportunity. We have an aspiration of becoming a net generator of renewable energy. But in the context of that emerging market, you need to be nimble in the delivery of the strategies as it's just dynamically and evolving. And with that, as a natural resource manager, there are some natural synergies for us at GWM Water in the evolution of renewable energy as a technology. And the current strategy focuses on playing a lead role in the development of microgrids and being an enabler of community energy and providing a better outcome to our overall customer and community base.
Go straight into the panel. My question was, you've got to do it by 2035. What's your timeline? Looks like you're ahead of the game if I do the maths.
We can certainly do 2035. I think that the issue is making sure we do it in a way that doesn't add cost to our customers. That's anything. We've got the opportunity there now. It's really how the regulatory framework evolves and the commercial opportunities can be realised in that area.
And as one of your customers, I appreciate it. But thank you. All right.